And we're live, I think. Anyway, hi, it is Ben here from Second Dynasty. Let me double check. It looks like the microphone's working. If you guys in the chat can just give me some indication that you see me, that things are working, I'd appreciate that. Let's start by saying some hellos. Hey Rutger, that blasted Camouflage, Dalton, Tamsin, Anders, welcome to the chat. Thank you for participating. Yeah, today pretty chill. I've actually installed a new version of Maya in the last couple of days because I did recently buy a new computer for my home computer, and rather than installing the older versions of Maya, I decided to install the latest one, check it out, see if it had a few improvements. A few small ones, a few setbacks, usually the way with Maya. Blender's probably better. But nevertheless, I am dealing with Maya. This is not the Modular Cutter. In fact, this is the Type S Scout, and the reason I'm showing it off is because I've actually updated the landing gear. Now, as much as Albin did a wonderful job on making articulated landing gear for the Type S that actually can retract, in practice, they're very fiddly, unstable, wobbly. It's very hard to get your ship just sitting right. So I redesigned them using the sort of same geometry as the Beowulf. I think they look better than the original Type S landing gear. And now they just plug in. They're super stable. It'll hold the ship together. All good. And we're going to release that as a free update. So I just wanted to go over that because one of the things that we will probably do with the next project that we're talking about, doing the Modular Cutter, that being a new Traveller project, is that we intend on using it as an opportunity to, well, the Type S, the Type J, the Beowulf, they'll all be available in like higher tier pledges, right? People that have already pledged for it, obviously they don't need to do this, but say if were curious about the Beowulf or the Type S or whatnot a couple of years ago, but you didn't have a 3D printer then, it's sort of like the opportunity to bag everything at once without having to, you know, I mean, it'll still be expensive, but you'll be able to save a little bit. Hi, John.
Hello.
Did you make yourself a burger?
Sure. It's frukost.
It is a frukosmorgas. Why don't you show people what it is?
It's frukost.
This is what John does. You made a burger bun kind of look like a bagel on camera.
It has sausage and egg and it has cheese.
Good job.
The cheese is spreadable.
Very good.
Would you like it?
No, I'm streaming.
Oh, what a pity. Which is a shame I made it at this time when you couldn't possibly eat it. I'll eat it all.
It's like he did it on purpose. Anyway, yeah. John, of course, is here. Lisa Lotta's gone on holidays. Alvin is on holidays, so it's just the two of us now, manning the fort. And yeah, I just wanted to show off real quick how those landing gear look. We actually do have the physical print, but I think maybe it's a bit too much to ask for John to bring the whole ship over. It's a bit...
I can do it.
You want to do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
The landing gear one.
Yeah, the Type S.
Sure thing.
All right, let me just switch to our big camera again.
Make sure we're not muted.
We're not muted.
Okay.
There's no back and forth to clips and things.
Mm-hmm.
We are spiking a bit though. Maybe I need to lower the volume just a tidge. Is that better? Yeah, it's not spiking. Okay.
It's the compressor that you're running that's making a spike.
All right, here we go. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see the landing gears here.
That
This
one's
is not actually attached.
That's not open lock clip. The open lock clip is broken inside of it.
Yes, it did.
Someone glued it in. Yeah.
So here is the lower landing gear. And yeah, is that? Yeah, that's also not quite in. But we can show you what it looks like. It has a slight springiness to it, so it's not like a perfectly flat thing. This had a few minor print issues, but yeah, I think in the whole it came out great. Thank you, John. Actually, take that Let's see if I can see the holes in here. Am I in the right spot?
Who knows? I'll put it back together.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
There, it's kind of in-ish. It's falling to pieces.
Those are the old parts of the old...
They are the very old parts. They're the prototype parts, so... that thing doesn't even have a support rod in it. Oh hey, we've got a lot more people than usual today. What are people dropping in for Traveller? Have you been spreading the word again, Dalton?
See you, yeah.
Have we done retracted versions as well? No.
Of course I didn't move in Eric Anderson.
And they also said it looks delicious, the food.
Aw,
So yeah, anyway, I don't know if you guys heard that sound, but it's not comforting to me. So yeah, the Type S, I love the way it looks now. The other part change I made is that this previously used to be 2 parts, and it left this odd pattern. I think you can actually see it on some of the deck plans. So this is just a merged version where now it's a solid piece. You can see where the forward landing gear goes in here. Basically, I just wanted to make something that you could pop off and see the crawl space underneath. In practice though, you couldn't actually do that, so I decided to make it a full and whole piece. Hi Thomas, hi Brian, Eric. Nice to see some more people in the chat. So yeah, the crash part hitting the floor, yes indeed. So yeah, there's lots to say about the Type S as an older model, but I'm guessing what people are actually here for is a far more controversial Traveller model, and that is the Modular Cutter. And this is what we've got so far, because I don't know how many people in here... Let's see, we could actually poll things, alright. Let's start a poll. Are you familiar with the Traveller RPG? And yes or no, let's ask the community and see how many people here are familiar with Traveller and the Modular Cutter in general. I'm sure there'll be different people with different experience levels of Traveller. Well, that's quite high. Dalton, have you been promoting this ship? Okay, there we go. That's some of the most like swingy type voting I've seen, and it's nice to see we've got 14 votes in already about Traveller. People aren't shy about that. So about 2/3 of the people in the chat appear to be familiar with Traveller. So this is a dodgy looking ship. It is based on some older designs. My favorite iteration is probably this one, although there are a couple of other ones. Let's see if I think I've got an image here that I saved up. There we go. This is from, I think, the GURPS Traveller. And this is sort of like, as I design a ship, I kind of draw in from all the different versions that I've seen. This is a Traveller thing, I mean. So, let's see, I'm just going to end the poll there. So, Traveller, since it seems like there is still like 43% of the people here who are unfamiliar with Traveller, is a veteran role-playing game. You might say it is the Dungeons and Dragons of science fiction role-playing. It's based in a universe in a far-flung future where there have been several different empires rise and fall, and people get around using something called jump drive, which is kind of like a fold drive, only the process always takes 1 week of real time, no matter the distance. And there are kind of limitations on the distance it can go. So communication is not faster than light, but ships can go faster than light, and so there is a sort of delay. So it kind of has a Wild Westy feel, where it takes several weeks to get news updates and whatnot from different parts, and then getting news updates from like really far away takes a very long time. In any case, we have had the Traveller license. This is our 3rd year of 4 so far. I don't know if it's going to be renewed yet. So assuming it's not, next project will be our last Traveller project. Hopefully we can extend it at least, but I don't know how many new things we can do sticking to the license, and I kind of really want to get my teeth stuck into doing some more original ships. This is the Type S, the first traveler ship that we did. It's basically it's a role-playing game from, I believe, the late 70s. I want to say, actually it came out within a month of Star Wars, so it was a month after Star Wars launched, and that would be 1977, right? And yeah, it's basically been a staple of the role-playing community since then. Had many iterations, the most recent of which is Mongoose 2nd Edition Traveler. And I have a sort of like limited range of which Traveler designs I'm allowed to license, because I'm licensing straight from Far Future Enterprises, Mark Miller the creator. And so I'm kind of limited to older stuff when it comes from the designs. This one in particular was based on a design by Rob Caswell, who's probably my favorite Traveler artist, and I believe that's from the Mega Traveler period. I barely know these things myself, but yeah, this is basically it. So we've done this, we've done the Beowulf, which is technically twice the size, but once we actually converted the two-dimensional deck plans, so that these are all done for 28mm scale, so I think it's easier to illustrate with this finished scene here. If we take off the top, let's see, we want to take off the cockpit lid, we want to take off the top hull, and we want to take off the turret there, so we can sort of see down into the ship, and it looks like we're missing the main deck and main floors there. So yeah, here we can, and we want the partitions as well. There we go. And we may as well put up the top, sorry, not the top hull, the upper deck here, so you can kind of see the whole picture. Sorry about this scene, it's a little bit washed out. I haven't quite figured out the color settings to use. Maybe I'll just put this at 0 there, and it'll be slightly brighter. But yeah, the idea here was to have a 28mm scale version of the original deck plan, so we try to make it fit as closely as possible. Again, sorry this looks so washed out, it's kind of bothering me. Let's see, maybe we can just go raw, or no, that doesn't look good. I'm trying to get one that looks most similar to the original version I had, but yeah, it's not quite cooperating, so call it a Maya 2024 problem. So yeah, you get the vague idea that we have the three-dimensional map, and then we sell the STL files, and you can print this out yourself. So that's what we've been doing. The Beowulf was even bigger. We followed the deck plans as close as we could. We had to extend the ship. We always have to find this balance between the deck plans as previously published and what actually works in a 3D space. Now, I thought the Type S was bad because it's in this wedge shape, right? Obviously, it's kind of reminiscent of a very, very tiny Star Destroyer, I guess. And, you know, the frustrating thing with that is, let's see, maybe we can turn, oh, there we go. Maybe that's fixed it. It's still a bit bright. Whatever. Yeah, basically we have a situation where the old school maps for these in 2D don't translate well. I thought the Type S was bad because the angles, it kind of is. I think we figured out it actually comes up to about 80% of the size of what it should be. We did the Beowulf, it ended up coming up to being 150% of what it was on the deck plans, so it should be like 330 D-tons is what our ship actually would be, if you counted all the volume interior. And then we have the Modular Cutter. Now, the Type S took me, I think, 6 to 7 months to design, which I felt was way too long. The Beowulf took 8 months, and you know, we're running a business. We didn't make a profit on that ship, and it kind of proved to us that large traveler ships aren't really viable for us, even though I love the results and what we've done. You're just agreeing with me, John, and creeping in?
I'm agreeing with you, yeah. They're wonderful, but building an accurate one in the constraints takes significantly longer than a new design.
Yes, and that's part of the problem. The constraints of trying to fit with everyone's expectations of what it's going to be. But also, all of these different editions and different interpretations of things. And I didn't quite realize how some of the older editions really don't even have illustrations or maps. And that might be a benefit of the modular cutter. So the one thing with the modular cutter is, this is our current campaign. Check it out if you haven't. Links in the description. But if I check out just a quick Google search of the modular cutter, we get up this image. And I want to just see if we can get that up. It's very low res. Hopefully it's showing all right. And you can see the small craft. And I believe this is from Classic Traveler. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dalton, or anyone else that's truly familiar with this. But you have a bunch of different small craft that are based on the same sort of chassis. So I'm thinking, okay, this style of ship has an unfortunate shape, not that inspirational, but not that different from a rocket, really. But there are so many different variants that we could do of this one. Now, the Type S, we could fairly easily do the Type J. It probably shared about 30% of the same parts, which is a lot less than I was expecting. Here it's more a case of you can do different variants of the cabins, you can do different variants of the modules. That's the whole point of this thing. So the Scout is 100 tons. The modular cutter, which is the largest, well, pretty much the larger version of single hull length version of this kind of craft, is 50 tons. So it is half the volume, which means a quarter of the plastic. It means the design time will be a lot less. And we have just laid out what it would look like. Now, the main issue and the main thing to talk about, and there are some Traveler people in here, so it's important to say this. It's there were some creative choices that need to be made. And even when I've talked to Mark Miller about this, he would have preferred a 4 square wide, that is to say 6 meter interior volume. And many editions of Traveler use that version of it. This is a 3 square version. And there's a good reason for it, and that is that it makes it more compatible with these different variants. And technically, these variants could have been done at 4 squares as well. But the really cool thing about the way I've done it is this is 100% accurate. Each segment, let me just see if we can, turn on my attribute editor. Now I want the channel box layer here. So I want to take the tops off here. I'm just going to add these back in to the top so we can kind of see down into the form that we have. Let's see, add selected objects. Whoops, wrong one. That one. So we can kind of see down into what the ship is supposed to be. I'm going to make it impossible to actually hit those lights now. And yeah, basically I thought this thing was meant to end here. And then we have the cargo container immediately, but no, there's cabin space, there's cargo space. These 3 squares, so across here, and counting the volume in a cylinder, is exactly 2 D tons. So the whole length of the ship, basically 25 squares, a little bit varying here in the cockpit. The cockpit is almost finished. I'm actually designing it with a few cool little implementations in mind, and it really has this sort of commercial airliner feel, right? Like a space truck, essentially, like a commercial freight sort of thing. So I've only really gotten to detail the front here. Right now we're working on a concept so that we can basically have the Kickstarter, which probably will launch in September. So we can put that up well ahead so people can sort of reserve the page and we can generate a big impact and lots of interest. There's meant to be 2 D tons of airlock, so I put one at the front, one at the back. We've got the engine section here. We haven't put any engines in yet, but I'm looking to go for more like this sort of a look maybe, but like with a cone. It's hard to say yet. I don't know exactly. We'll probably have a few different options there. So this is basically just the initial sketches. This is how it would look if you had like standard cargo containers in it. Of course, that wastes a lot of space, so we'll do a version where it has actual, cargo containers designed to fit like a commercial airliner, or rather cargo liner, or whatever you might call an aircraft that has these form-fitting containers. And of course, this module itself in the middle is 30 D-tons worth of cargo, and the idea is it's meant to be swapped out for a bunch of different modules. So basically, we've chosen the size based on what's going to be very easy to print, and also those people that do follow Traveller will know that, like, the Mercenary Cruiser, for example, is meant to be able to fit several of these craft. If they were 4 squares wide, there's not enough wall space. Like, something has to be compromised anyway. So these ones will actually fit. I've already worked with John very cleverly to work on an airlock that will work, so that instead of opening out, this actually, let's see, I don't have my GUI on. Let me put my HUD on. And I need to show my manipulators as well. So this will just slide up into the ceiling here. So that, yeah.
We've actually even test printed it.
Yeah, did we?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we did. So we know that this works. It's very loose to test print because we didn't put any hull plating or detailing on it. So this is my modified version. And you can kind of see here, like, the detail level we're looking to go for. But the idea would be keeping this curved shape on everything, but maybe swapping out the front. So if I did turn on my workshop layer, you would see all of the iterations I've already tried and done. So this was meant to be, the 4 square wide version. There's various issues. Even in the 4 square wide version, the cargo containers in that, they're supposed to be like split height, and it doesn't really work. Here's just a very quick idea of a more like a commercial airliner front. Sort of more egg-shaped versions, and I can imagine doing my own version, which is literally like think of space truckers, or think of the Winnebago from Spaceballs, or that sort of thing. There's a lot of different things that you could do, and change the modules, of course. So you don't have to have the form-fitting ones. You could literally have like a bunch of cargo containers. The idea is that you have the front section, you have the back section, and there are many iterations that we can do. So there are a ton of these ships, as Dalton is listing, and the simple fact is we couldn't make things work with the larger ships in Traveller. And when I say larger, I really mean anything larger than a modular cutter, or we might have been able to do anything under like 100 D-tons is more reasonable, but like the ships get too big. Like the Beowulf is 5.25 kilos of plastic. That means that in addition to having to pay for our STL files, which are 450 parts for the Beowulf, and take 8 months to develop, and test print and everything else, and then that's before we do any customizations or stretch goals. So I mean, Beowulf we've spent at least 10 if not 11 months on, all up, and that's just like we can't make things work like that. So to answer your question, Michael Tenery, as cool as the Safari ship is, I would say no, unless we could double the amount of people that back our Traveller campaigns. There's just not enough of an audience. It's as simple as that. It's sad. It would be nice to do more, but maybe this campaign will turn things around. I don't know, but in all likeliness, this will probably be our last Traveller campaign, simply for the fact that we need to I mean, we might do the occasional small craft or something like that, but this will be the last big campaign, and hopefully from this ship we can do a bunch of different variants, which really makes it easier for us to work on iteration, makes a ton of different parts that are compatible, so it gives you guys a little bit of modularity, like if you have the sort of like cargo container, or more like I can imagine doing a variant which has a section that sort of gives you more like Eagle 1 type engines or a look, we can build upon that. We've also developed a smaller clip system just for this ship to keep the walls very thin. Like if we take off the top here, this won't be a perfect look, but these are 2.2 millimeters thick for the walls. Then there'll be plating, so it gets slightly thicker than that, probably 2.5. And then the clips are actually, I don't think we've actually got that built in. This one has them. The clips are actually very, very small, and John's made these clips that are basically take advantage of FDM printing and put it at just the perfect level of working. They're tiny, tiny, tiny. I feel like he's going to want to try and show it off.
Of course, you don't talk about...
He's grabbing things.
It's too late, sir.
Yeah, I'm prepared. Are you?
Yes.
Alright, let's
I think we need an open lock clip. Oh, here's one.
For comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just hold that up to the camera. There you go. That's the difference in size between his new clips and our old open lock clips. So, and they're technically pretty close in strength. There we go. Hear that click. Very satisfying. Very good. So they're quite tight. Obviously we're going to use more than one at a time. Thank you, John. And yeah, that's just sort of one of the small things that we can do. I really like the work on the cockpit so far. I've actually got a little... let's see, I'm just going to grab a few things so we can sort of see my idea is that you've got your cockpit here. I was thinking like initially there's not enough space in the cab for stuff, so that's why we have like this cramped fresher in with the sort of life support systems. A bit ironic, I thought that would be a funny little tidbit to say, oh yeah, it's in with the fresher being a traveler term for toilet / shower occasionally, but this would be the kind of craft where basically you're doing the astronaut wet wipes thing. But yeah, having a little curtain under here, and then you've got your little bed resting area there. So it's really like a Mack truck in space, right? Because these are very short range vessels, they're only meant to be in system. Well, I say short range, I mean they're not interstellar vessels. So let's see. Oh, we've got a ton of comments here I should maybe read through. Let's see. Even if it has to cost more, I'd pay it. I assume you're talking about the I assume you're talking about the safari ship you brought up before, and it's great that you would be willing to pay more. The problem is there's not enough other people that are at the same time. I think we would lose a lot of people. Let's see. Agreed, the Cutter is the best ship as it can be made to do many other ships. I'm working on tripling the number, but it takes time. Dalton is like our number one traveler pusher, I would say. Add in non-standard options like a train conversion or the variants with wings and such. Make some non-traveler options and you'd be golden. Possibly. I'm hoping for a Kickstarter stretch goal to get all the variants I listed earlier. We could certainly get a fair number of those. Although I might be tempted to put more up front. Less stretch goals, more like, hey, this is what we've done. Because we're kind of finding like we're having a hard time covering our costs. So I'd probably set the initial goal much higher than usual. And then stretch goals would unlock after then. So we can sort of like cover what our production is for once. The more people will find out about our traveler ships and come looking up, there could be an interest in doing them. Yes, there could be. The thing is, like, the safari ship, it's also a 200-ton ship, I believe. So we're talking Beowulf size. I don't think it'd be quite as big as Beowulf. It probably translates better. the numbers would have to triple to get to that point. And it also means I can't design my own taste in ships. I would rather almost design my own ships that can work well in Traveller than rely on so many of the ships. And whilst I realize a lot of people have a soft spot for the Traveller designs, it's not quite to my taste. And this one in particular is quite a challenge, making a ship that looks like what it looks like. Make it more interesting, make it look less like, less suggestive. Let's put it that way. I think the issue is that the pool of potential backers is limited. It must be a Traveller fan and must be into 3D printing, or know of someone who is and have the time for printing and painting. That is one of the problems, yes. The deck plans could help drum up interest, but it's unproven at this point. Any toilet can be a shower in 0G. Ooh. The cutter is great, but when can we build out the lab ship using the rest of the deck plan parts that you've made? I mean, you could do that immediately, because I would never actually make a lab ship in 28mm as a physical ship. I would do the ring laid out just as you see the deck plans, basically. I think that's, for larger ships, that has to be the way of doing it. What we have been discussing is just doing some, like, doorways and furniture and that sort of thing, so that you could have a hybrid 2D 3D map instead for some of the larger ships. Less printing, get a scenario done in a day or two of printing. That would be much better. Alright, with this potentially being the last ship, what are the chances of getting some more of the common species as miniatures? Asking for reasons. It all depends on what budgets we have to play with. So I'd like to see some more miniatures. I don't know if we'll have, like, usually when we're doing miniatures we need to visualize them, which means we need to pay up front for the artists. And that is a big ask. Let's see. Can we have a second Dynasty interpretation of the Pirates of Trinix ship? The real one is too big. The pirate ship would be neat. I'd love to do a space pirate ship at some point. Speaking of what it looks like, did you see my potential names for these small craft? I don't think I did. Let's see. With Traveller, you could design your own ships, so any design could work. Yeah, I mean, we have lots and lots of ships and many ship variants. So many, in fact. I can't even count exactly how many ship variants we have, but I know it's probably close to 40. That's sort of like counting all of the old school variants and whatnot, but yeah, Travellerifying ships like we did for the Beta Centauri. That was like, we took our scout ship Beta, updated it for use in Traveller, and it came out to about 150 tons. So yeah, I've got to build these cabins here. I need to sort of like figure out how this is all going together. The major thing that's an issue to figure out is how the forward section and the rear section will fit together. Technically it would have been better to have the bar down the bottom rather than up the top, but you need to have the sort of carry-all feature of sort of dropping off the cargo, right? Technically, it just says 2 tons for airlock, so what I've actually done is put one at the front and one at the back. I tried to make it a little bit wider so that if you are parked in an odd direction, I think in theory you would just have something that sort of folds out at an angle here. So it's like a grav plate, so you can get from 45 degrees to 45 degrees to 45 degrees, so you actually invert, right? The Harrier from Pirates of Trinix is a Mongoose design, not a T5 design, so it's not covered by the license. I mean, yeah, we can still do ships that fit in with things that are approximately the same size. You know, technically there could have always been an option of talking to Matt Sprange about it, but you know, we already have issues making the license work as it is, so an additional cut going away to someone else would make it hard. I think honestly, I'll keep designing new ships, but I'll leave Traveller in the back of my mind so that, you know, you could use it to represent a Traveller ship. Most people like to customize their ships a lot anyway, so the game I'm playing in at the moment, we have a Beowulf, but we're finding it's way too small, or rather a free trader. So we're about to swap up to a 300-ton variant. And yeah, we're just souping it up so that we can do a racing run to Terra. Or Capital, I think it's called. What is it? Where the Emperor is. For some reason, one of my other players just wants to assassinate the Emperor. It's a crazy mission. It's probably not going to happen. It's going to take years to get, literally years to get to there anyway. But yeah, let's see. Much like how the Enterprise shuttles get named, for example, the Galileo, I think these ships could need names. Oh wow! Because of the shape, you're suggesting that they should be called Caligula, Marquis de Sade, Heliogabalus. I don't know that one, but Byron I do. I assume that Heliogabalus is also a bit of a perv in some way. Let's see. John Wood says, is the area between the module and the airlock space new? Old Traveller deck plans typically showed only the cockpit / the airlock locker space and then the module. So yeah, this is the thing. Okay, again, we only have the 3... I keep saying 3-inch, but I mean 3 squares. So the 4.5 meter wide version. But the stats for it actually has 6 tons of cabin space, 4 tons of cargo. That together is a total of 10 squares. I have put 4 up the front and 1 up the back, and then we had about 2 tons worth of engine, I believe, or something like that. So that's going to be sticking out the back. So yeah, we'll certainly make a version available, or rather you'll be able to build this out in such a way that you can just get rid of this module if you don't want it. So we'll have a landing gear solution here, 1 here in case you have both there, and 1 at the back. So if you want to shorten this by 4 inches, you can do so, but it won't technically have 50 D-tons because the module's 30 D-tons, right? So we've calculated it all out, and again, this length here in the cylinder form is the equivalent of 2 D-tons, and when I say D-ton, I mean, I think Dalton said real D-tons. I don't know what he means, but it's 14.5 cubic meters. I know some people calculate 13.5, others just 13, but apparently this is like the real size. So it gives you an indication of like what those volumes actually look like. I'll probably leave the Fresher as it is because I think it's charming, and like if you wanted to put this cab on the front of something, again, like if you're looking at the old school models here, that's exactly what we've got, right? So this will go on the front of a number of different craft. You can see that some of these noses are just slightly more streamlined. Whoops, wrong Maya. So we give ourselves some options, but essentially like this cabin section gets to be reused, and then we'll probably just have a little bit of variations available for the very, very front section. You can see I've added some RCS thrusters there just to break it up a little bit. If we put on the top section, we've got some patterns that are reminiscent of these sort of designs here for the, I think these were GURPS Traveller ones. So I'm trying to put a bit of different DNA from the various versions in. That's not entirely fair. There are a number of different versions, but I would say mine is like a version of the I'm trying to put on a version of like Ian Stead's version, a version that's like this, a little bit of DNA from this, what we're seeing now, a little bit of DNA from the original version, which it has very, very, very few details, and I believe in the first iteration didn't even have a deck plan. I could be wrong, but I couldn't see it in all the PDFs that I've got access to. And I would say then the other influence I've sort of been thinking about with this paneling is a combination of I don't know, there's something that kind of reminds me of like a Star Wars radar dish in this, but also I kind of looked at the lunar module. Sorry, not the lunar module. The lunar module, not the Eagle Lander, but the lunar module from like a Saturn V, as sort of inspiration for some of the plating and breaking it up and that sort of thing. So just you can kind of see here the difference between what an unpolished cylinder looks like. But like if I took out these little bumps here, all of a sudden you have a much more boring shape. So just putting in like an interesting engine pattern at the back is going to make this feel fantastic. Now these might not be the perfect sort of like RCS, that's reaction control systems, right? For basically changing the direction in space of a ship. Now in Traveller, they have artificial gravity, they use grav propulsion. Technically, you don't need those thrusters. These would be considered a backup, right? It's a backup system, but you still want to show it as being there. So let's see. Will the cargo module doors work similar to the airlock door? I'm assuming not due to structural integrity. I can't wait to see some of these ideas in original designs. So with the cargo module doors, I would say no, mostly because of the length of them. I haven't really thought about it. Actually, they could possibly be done in sections, and they could possibly be done from this direction instead. But in general, the consensus on the design is this is like a sort of coat hanger situation, right? Where you've got the rack, this connects to the rack. It seems like it would be very easy to deposit a cargo module on a planet, and that it would be very hard to pick it up and actually park on top of. That seems like it's a much more complicated maneuver. Hey Zorima, long time no see. Let's see, capital / core originally called Cythea. Oh, like in the Traveller universe, right? I gotcha. Okay, so the old deck plans don't make sense issue. Interesting. Yeah, this is a Traveller thing in general. There are no deck plans that make sense. I'm sorry to say, unless you've got, you know what? Geomorphs make perfect sense. Those are the only ones. That's it. No more. No other ones. Thank you, Zorima. Cutter face. How are you tackling the closet rod main section? So this is a good question, and the long and short of it is I don't actually know just yet, but this is a 15-inch length, so I would run a support rod in through this. I think is the only real sensible way to do it. The other way to do it is to sort of break it up in sort of like a jigsaw arrangement of sections and clips. To create a structural integrity so that it's sort of like fairly straight. So yeah, lots of work to be done before the finished result. I don't know, for the actual visualization, guys, do you think I should ditch this like we need to make a graphic, ideally either today or on Monday, which is a render of the modular cutter that we can put up on Kickstarter and say, hey, in September we're doing this project, sign up today. If we can get something like 2,000 signups before launch, we have additional options for marketing that we don't have if we don't have that many. So what I'm wondering is, should we temporarily, for that visualization, just take out this 4-inch section at the front to create something that's closer to what people would expect for the modular cutter? Because actually, this design and this length is very much in line with the original cutter design. Let's see, I need to... This is it, right? It's so tiny I can't even zoom in. This would be the instead kind. there's a couple of nice illustrations and module selections and that sort of thing. And they're great to draw inspiration from, but all of these modules are nonsense because there's just not the head clearance that you would need. So yeah, the original version, it doesn't look like it's got a cabin up the front. It looks more like there's more up the back. And that might be one way to go as well. That would be this tiny, tiny, tiny little thumbnail here. So it does have sort of like a much longer body, right? So we're actually closer to that with this thing. Let's see. Nice. I can see a small craft system emerging. Not a lot of difference between the modular cutter and the cutter. Yeah, we talked about that earlier, John. Or John Wood, rather. Fair enough on the Traveller deck plans. Even back in the 80s, I looked at those plans and wondered how you could fit people in there, especially at the edges. The other thing too is the hull thickness is ridiculously thin. It's just not practical, at least in 3D printing terms. This will be the thinnest one we've ever done at 2.2 or 2.4 millimeters, something like that. So it'll be quite thin. It's thick enough that you get several layers out of it with 3D printing. We may end up having to thicken it up too, I don't know, but this is what we're going to test. Let's see. You have some freedom with the dorsal fin/spine that could help reinforce as well as break up the shape. Look, ultimately, you can't go too far away from that because these things are supposed to also be able to dock with like a mercenary cruiser, right? So you want to keep them relatively cylindrical. And, you know, again, these older designs, there are a couple of, like, obviously this is not a modular cutter in the standard sense. It has a different, almost Beowulf-like nose. And I don't know if these are meant to be landing gear or fins. I initially thought landing gear, but I think they're fins. So I think this is meant to be a military modular cutter or something like that, since it's got the tank. And here we have more like a standard sort of one, but again, it doesn't quite match up with how it's meant to look. So this might not be a cutter, it might be more like a ship's boat or something like that. And we have some ideas for ramps here. We're going to put in a ramp that just folds out. Next month's Tribes ship. And Tribes, I don't know if you guys know what that is. I think maybe we have a link here to our tribe. If I go to our public profile. And then, oh, this needs a refresh. Good old My Mini Factory. So if I go to our tribe here. Try it for the third time. So this month we had our APC that we released, the Minotaur, to go along with our Kickstarter that we currently have running. And I guess I could just take like 5 seconds to show off this project. Because there are a few things that are of interest to Traveller fans. This needs refreshing as well. Some of the graphics are a little bit old. We've unlocked 12 stretch goals so far. They're based around these smaller aircraft, but the modular base, for example, that we have, it's perfect for like an outpost or a Class C starport. So there's sort of like, we've got a control tower with its own radar. A bunch of different craft. They print very nicely. They're one-day prints for the most part. You can kind of see the modular base we set up here with the control tower. Check it out if you haven't. Link is in the description. Actually, John just put it up there, I see. But anyway, yeah, our tribes, basically it's like Patreon. We do a small offering every month. Unfortunately, not Traveller, because it's a separate license. But yeah, next month's craft is called the Globule. Is it not next month? Although, oh yeah, sorry, we haven't. I was assuming we're already in July. This month is the Epsilon Bomber. The month after we have the Globule.
Can I show the
Globule.
We've already shown the Epsilon Bomber enough. Can I show them the updates to the Globule?
You can. I think we did show those too, but sure.
The updates.
Okay, the updates. All right, John. Come on.
It's so cold in this office. Here's the Globule.
So this is really just a silly little project, which is like a 3-man tourist pod.
Yes.
For in space. But the cool thing about it is the way that the landing gears sort of fold in. That's one thing. But the real cool thing is the thing at the back. Can I get it closer to the camera?
Mm-hmm.
So we have this door that pops out just a little bit, like it's a slide, and then it folds like so, and then the ramp folds out. So we'll probably have something similar. The door won't fold out, but the ramp folding out is certainly something we will have. And then John put in this lovely little Second Dynasty.
That's not in the final one. In the final Globiol that's released, it has the.
That's why this one's special, John.
Yes, it's.
Thank you, John.
It's as special as this pilot who's had a little too much.
So yeah, we try to do a new release every month on that, where it's just like something smaller and options if you want to get our back catalogue or just. We also put up a discount, so if you're ever buying anything off the store, like one of our ships, even the traveler ships that have been released, just sub for a month for $5 and you get 30% off anything on the store. Anyway, let's see. We've got some more questions or statements in the chat. Really active chat today, guys. I really appreciate that. It's nice to have so much discussion. The Beowulf with 20 slow berths, sure. Not sure what that was in reference to. We did actually get the low berths in, if that's what you mean. Let's see. Is it possible to do a twist lock connection for each section? I don't know. One of the ideas that Mark had was like that the cargo container would be a Coca-Cola can. I don't know that. I mean, it could technically work with an adapter, but I think it's probably a bit thick. I don't know. He would have preferred a 4-inch width, or 6 meter rather. Let's see. Can you add some textures to the surface of the cutter? What we can do is just change. We're going to be doing that. This is very much just a block out. This is not the finished version whatsoever. So you can see here at the front of the ship, this is more like what the finished look will be like of all the hulls. So there'll be some plating. There'll probably be even more detail than what there is now. This represents. This is just very much a block out. It probably represents 4 or 5 days of design exploration. There was a little bit before this one. I haven't been able to work on this full time this week. There's been other duties as well. Let's see. Backer from that Kickstarter, you sold me on it, made me a tribe member from it. That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's the best way to get in too, because there's a huge discount for tribes members. I would keep it closer to the original visualization just to manage expectations, but having options that match the actual tonnage math makes sense to me in the project overall. You would trust my Second Dynasty designs over Seagate? Seagate? What, like the hard drive manufacturer? Or what's that a reference to? The discount helps, thank you. Good. Don't forget to hit the like button, folks. Thanks, Tamsin. Yeah, you got them in, but was crazy how tight they were because the deck plans needed help. The Titan sub. Okay, yes, well, yeah. All right. So that's the basic tour. We've got about 5 more minutes here, so I think why don't we have a very quick poll and see what people think in general. Okay, should the visualization of the modular cutter look like original deck plans or have proper tonnage? And in let's put no cabin there for clarity. There we go. So I hope this is clear enough. Hey, why is it not letting me? Oh, my question is too long. Let's see. I'll take out the. There we go. So yeah, the question I'm asking basically is, should we use the visualization as is, or should we cut out these 4 inches to make it look more like in line with traditional artworks / deck plans? So again, if we're looking at these older deck plans, there's no real cabin space. This isn't really 30 tons either, so it's all relative. It does look like the original Traveller art. I'd have to agree with that. So let's see. Right now it's close with 12 votes, but the general consensus is to do the version that we have here. I guess technically you can certainly cut that cabin out. Again, we'll make it in such a way that you can choose if you want to have it or not. And then of course there are a few like these rings here actually take up additional space. It's just one of those things that we need it for structural integrity. You don't want to have these cylinders are going to be a challenge as they are, so I don't know if we're going to have some additional ribbing somewhere in there. Many of the illustrations that I've seen don't really have an opening the whole way over. I think some of the Ian Stead ones do. So right now we're at 15 votes and 2/3 of people think it should stay the way that it is, which I would say is a pretty good consensus. Let's go with that then. They sleep in the chairs. Well, I mean, that's the thing. I've already put this into account, so there's actually a nice trucker bed underneath the control panel here. So, like in the nose of the ship, so you just have a little curtain here maybe, and then you just crawl down into bed and get your 40 winks. I mean, while your co-captain is keeping an eye on. We've got some mug holders on the side. This is mirrored at the moment, so I'll put a bit more asymmetry in. And change the controls in the middle. I'd like to add some sort of like 747 style controls. I don't know exactly what to call them, but the kind where you sort of like pull back the levers, that sort of thing. Let's see. These are short haul vessels, yeah. So I went with the shorter version just because the extra length is perfect for a stretch goal. Well, I think, like I said, I think we'll try to make more variety from the get-go. So we might not just make a modular cutter. We'll basically, from the modular cutter template, make the layout so that we can do, a 20-ton launch, 30-ton ship's boat. They're quite similar. Hardly any changes, right? And that would be, I guess that has the cabin there that we were talking about. Let's see, maybe if this image, wish we could blow that up some more. Yeah, it's terribly small. But yeah, and horribly detailed. But yeah, this is more like what we can probably expect. At least these 3 variants, I would say. Obviously, the modular cutter is the 3 square wide version. But 3 squares, as you can see at scale, is actually quite a lot, and it really kind of feels like, that would be the equivalent of like a sort of an Airbus, like a 737 or something, like you could easily get 2 rows of seats either side there, probably actually 3 and 3 if it was in reality, but things are a little bit more open at miniature scale. I've designed it so that you should be able to get a miniature in the middle of this little square. Obviously we have our miniatures that are seated that you could sit and pose. I'm going to make it so that the top can pop off, obviously. That'll just take the door with it. So you'll need to sort of open the airlock door and then lift off the top if you don't want it to be kind of stuck. So yeah, there's a couple options in here. An early design exploration, enough that we've got our render. I've gotten a fairly good indication from you guys in the community. that we're heading in an interesting direction. There's so much variety we can get out of the modular cutter, so I hope it might help make Traveller a little more viable this time around, and we can, at the very least, go out with a bang. But I think it's pretty safe to say in 2024 to expect more original ships rather than Traveller ones. But yeah, this will be our big campaign for the year. We'll, at the same time, of course, make available the Kickstarter editions of our other Traveller ships for higher pledge levels for people that didn't get in on earlier. Won't be as much of a discount as the people that backed the first time got, but certainly better than any other thing available at the moment. So again, check out the links, subscribe, like, join our newsletter, although I don't think we have a link for that one. Visit seconddynasty.com or follow the link to our current Kickstarter. Thank you guys if you did back. Thank you for joining me. Great dialogue today. Nice to see some new faces joining us. And we'll be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. See you guys.